Now, I've been told that if the audience has questions, the floor is yours. I'd be happy to try and answer them. I at least see one question over there. Yeah, I think you need a mic, though. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for an interesting talk. I was hoping if you could talk a little bit about the long-term effects of this, using this method, especially maybe on the groundwater supply and maybe the strain it might put on the Earth's crust by putting a lot of weight and pressure into the Earth's crust. I'm not a geologist, but I don't know, I imagine that might have some effect in a geoactively area like Iceland or other areas.
Actually, it doesn't, but I'll explain why. First, to answer the question about groundwater, we do not inject into reservoirs that contain our groundwater. We inject to a greater depth, a minimum of 500 meters. Currently, we are injecting below 1,000 meters. And the wells that we use, they are completely cased off, so nothing is able to get into the groundwaters. With respect to your second question, what the effects are to add weight to the bedrock in the underground. What we do is really, it can be divided into two steps, because what we do first is actually dissolving the rock that is already there underground. That way we release chemicals into the water that meet up with the dissolved CO2 so that it can form new minerals. So we remove some rock and add some rock. So we are not putting that much strain on the subsurface. But eventually, pore space that is found all around us in the underground could gradually fill up, and hopefully will gradually fill up, because that means that we are really injecting large amounts of CO2. So this then would be just a matter of optimizing injection strategies.
Yes, Peter Fikowski with the Foundation for Climate Restoration, and we're working to align the climate goal to a proven safe CO2 level below 300 parts per million. Thank you for a very good talk, and for the CarbFix is a very inspiring project demonstrating that we can do what nature does to remove the massive amounts of CO2 that need to be removed. What kind of financing would be possible to actually make our planet survivable for human beings, to get the 1 trillion tons of CO2 back out of the atmosphere and turned back into rock? What kind of financing?
Are you speaking in terms of numbers or where the budget would come from?
Both.
Okay, well, I can't give you a firm answer on either, but I'll try and answer it this way. Obviously, we need to try the method in many locations throughout the world. At each location, we would start with a pilot phase, costing somewhere around 5 to 10 million euros. From that, we would learn how we would optimize upscaled activities. Then we're talking perhaps a 10 times larger investment at each site. To date, the company I work for, Reykjavík Energy, has been the investor in the technical equipment, etc., for our operations. But we have had significant contributions from research funds in Europe with respect to developing the method and testing it in pilot scale. Obviously, the European Union can't fund everything that needs to be done, so we would very much like to see other investors chip in, and that is what we need to do and what we need to see. I see one raised hand over there.
Yes, thinking about scalability, Peter Wadhams from Cambridge, England. Thinking about scalability, you've shown a very large number of potential sites here, many of them in the middle of the ocean. But if you just think about the Iceland site, how far can you scale that upwards? I mean, must be a limit to the amount of CO2 that can be stored in any one site. Can you have a strategy of focusing on a small number of sites and putting a lot of CO2 into each, or having a small amount in a large number of sites?
Well, I think it would be best to do both. because where we have large emission points located to favorable storage formations, we should use those. However, it would be, of course, optimal to focus on the large sites. And with respect to Iceland, I mean, we have more than enough basalt here to deal with all of our emissions for a long period of time. So perhaps we might even import some if there is interest in such a joint collaboration. But as you mentioned, the really large potential is in the oceanic ridges. So that is where we want to go. But it will take us some years to finish the necessary additional research and innovation work to get there. It's beeping, yeah.
Can I put another question?
I think the beeping or the flashing red light means that our time is up. So thank you very much.